Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked here on the channel. This is the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because I was brought to this city to do a job and I'm gonna do it. Today we are talking about Robert Jackson Bennett's The Divine Cities trilogy. It might be just Divine Cities. Roll the intro music anyway. I own book one of this series. I believe I was gifted this by a friend or family member.
Hi, it's Editing Judith. It was actually one of my very lovely patrons. Thank you so much.
And I read book 2 and 3 from the library. But regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. I will keep this as spoiler-free as humanly possible. I am going to be talking about the series as a whole though, so if you want to go in knowing absolutely nothing, pause the video, come back when you've read them, we'll talk then. And I will link the story graph for the series down below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. I would say maybe a touch of body horror, just a touch would be the one that springs to mind straight away, but we're not going to get into that too much in this review. This is a urban fantasy mystery series, is how I would describe it. They're not mysteries in a strict, setup of the crime and, Agatha Christie way, but there are mysteries to be solved. There is some bureaucracy in cities. There are divine things going on, as you would expect from the title. And yeah, it's a bit of a genre blendy, mash-up-y kind of series in a very similar way to Robert Jackson Bennett's other series that I've read and loved, the Founders Trilogy. I will link the video if and when I remember at some point in this video. This series released between 2014 and 2017 and includes City of Stairs, City of Blades, and City of Miracles. You've got to be careful when you're chasing a murderer through Bulakov, for the world is not as it should be in that city. When the gods were destroyed and all worship of them banned by the polis, reality folded. Now stairs lead to nowhere, alleyways have become portals to the past, and criminals disappear into thin air. The murder of Dr. Ephraim Pangui, the polis diplomat researching the continent's past, began something. Now whispers of an uprising are fluttering out from invisible corners. Only one woman is willing to pursue the truth, but it is likely to cost her everything. So we have a world where the divinities are gone, but it has a very strong connection to divinities, and in book one we're in this city where a lot of the city was built by divinities and now they're gone. A lot of the city is also gone. Obviously, because it's a Robert Jackson Bennett book, he's looking at the mechanics of that world. How does that work? One of the things I really love about this series is that world building, is that consideration not only of the physics of a world that had the divine and now only has flashes of the divine is probably the least spoilery way of talking about it. The idea of an absence of a miracle is still a miracle in itself, implies that there was one there. Within that we have incredibly complex politics and most importantly history and the sense of history belonging to the victor and all of that stuff coming in beautifully, which as an ancient history student hits me right where I want it. I want all of that good, long thought about how things function in a world where things used to be done magically. You do definitely get the sense that you're at the end of a long fantasy series, which I've talked about a little bit in the context of other series like After the War. Sometimes it feels a bit bogged down, but I think because that wasn't the full concept of the book, it's not the idea that you're telling the next story, it just is the next story. It works in this instance. So we have our characters not only grappling with a metaphysical mystery in a lot of ways and trying to solve, in this instance, one of the big mysteries is they're chasing a thief and the thief vanishes and they have to try and work out how the thief has done this, but also dealing with bureaucracy and international relations and potential revolutions trying to bubble up within the city and finding your place within society, and all of those things really fascinating and a really lovely complicated mix to drop characters in and for us to explore characters through that conflict. Because all three books follow different individuals in different adventures in different cities, you do definitely get that all three times. It doesn't feel bogged down by having to repeatedly come back to the same character and see them do character growth again. You get a little taste of something new each time. The Founders Trilogy has an incredibly logistical magic system, and I like that this world, while the original divine magic is a little chaotic and sometimes doesn't make any sense, and there is a real understanding that something has been lost and that we're not remembering everything. In fact, that's a huge part of the book, is that we're missing bits and pieces. There is still a sense that there was a logic to it, and I really like that idea. I am a person who adores a hard magic system, but this idea of a puzzle to solve where you've not got all the pieces and some of the pieces are still working and some of them aren't oh, that hit me right here. That hit me in the enjoyable mental place. I think Robert Jackson Bennett knows how to write a series that ignites my curiosity. While I wouldn't have described these books as those classic murder mystery things, they do have those classic mystery moments of everything clicking into place. And my favourite thing happens. It's how I know I've enjoyed a mystery book is if I crack it 2 pages before the detective cracks it. I've talked about this before, I'm sure. That tells me that the clues have all been there in the right sense of time and that the author wanted me to pick up on them and I've picked up on them. It just means it's been written really well. But if you don't manage to pick up on it, the click into place of all of those various elements of the story, always a good time. If you're wanting to pick these up because you loved the Founders Trilogy, which is the situation I was in, I don't think they're as strong, or perhaps it would be more accurate to say the elements I like about the Founders Trilogy are different from this. So that hard magic system, that much more kind of scrappy band of people, where more often than not we're dealing with authority figures in this series. I don't know. I felt differently, and also obviously Founders Trilogy follows the same characters throughout, so if you're not prepared for shifting perspective in books 2 and 3, this might not be for you as well. Obviously, if you've not read the Founders Trilogy and you're not sure, you could read these first, it wouldn't make a difference. But just for my Robert Jackson Bennett Founders fans, that was my perspective on that. Some of the elements of the story do talk about colonialism in a lot of ways, and they're definitely critical of it, and it's definitely not a series that just goes, dude, it's fantasy, so I can talk about this and it's fine, and we don't need to engage with that in the context of the real world. However, I have seen that theme handled better in other books. I think for me personally, it was a good thing to have explored within this story and not one that you could have left out. However, if you want a book that explores colonialism through a fantasy series, I would read The Unbroken first. Just my take. I think overall, I really did enjoy reading this series. I had a good reading experience going through all 3 books, and I was excited to start the next one, which I wasn't expecting, given that they are closed off stories. You still need to read them in order, particularly if you're going to go all the way through to book 3, but the actual adventures are contained. I would have thought that I would have been happy to finish book 2 and then not leap straight into book 3, but actually I really liked being in this world and I wanted to solve the broader mysteries and the broader world building things that were going on. That being said, I don't think this is a series I will reread particularly often. I don't feel the need to go out and get copies of books 2 and 3 so I can pick them up whenever I want. If I'm going to reread Robert Jackson Bennett, I personally will be rereading Foundryside. So yes, other things you might want to read. I already mentioned The Unbroken. I think that's a fantastic series and definitely picks up on some of the themes of this book. Likewise, I wonder about the Texiclan series by Arkady Martin. That's only 2 books and it's much more of a sci-fi, but I think it's got some interesting elements in terms of cultural identity and the erasure of cultural identity. Well worth reading. The other thing I've put on my list is the Broken Earth trilogy, and I think it's just that sense of being in a kind of apocalyptic situation. That's much more sort of natural disaster apocalypse rather than divine apocalypse, but there's something in there very interesting. Overall, if you like Robert Jackson Bennett's way of writing almost puzzles, I guess, rather than mysteries, puzzling things and solving those puzzles, I think this is a good series to read. Just comparing the two, which you have to do when you read the books this kind of way, Foundryside for me hits better, but still well worth reading. Really glad I read this. Thank you so much to my patron for gifting me this copy. I do appreciate you very much. I'm really glad that I finally got a chance to chat about it on the channel. Have you read the Divine Cities trilogy? Let me know down in the comments below your thoughts. If you're planning on reading it, let me know what your feelings are going in. I would love to hear from you. Do you have a series where you've kind of been stuck after reading book 1 and just never got to the end? I know you do. Let me know what it is. Maybe I'll encourage you to finish it. I would love to hear all of these things. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. I would like to say an enormous thank you to all the ghosts who haunt me over on Patreon. They support the channel and in return get early access to videos, bonus content, live streams and more. If you'd like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much to you for watching. That's all from me and I will see you in the next one. It's gonna be some bloopers now. Well, that's interesting. They've referenced Neil Gaiman. That's very interesting. I'm gonna steal that for later. While